Welcome in, guys. Today we're going to be talking about something you've all been waiting for, the PSA STizon, which is just an AKV with a Bizon conversion kit to accept helical mags. There's a company called Stuff and Things that makes these kits, so you don't have to wait for PSA to get them back in stock. However, I would wait for PSA, and we'll go over why. So obviously the STizon is modeled after the PP-19 Bizon. A lot of you out there have probably used these in video games like in Call of Duty and in Counter-Strike. The Bizon was needed to fill a request from the MVD, or Russian Ministry of Internal Affairs. They needed a new close-range, high-capacity, accurate, and easily maneuverable SMG for CQB counterterrorism. Prototypes were trialed by the Special Equipment Research Institute in 1995, where they outperformed several competitors. The weapon was accepted into service in the late 90s. The Bizon was issued to the FSB, or Federal Security Service, and Ministry of Justice. It was used in combat operations against the separatists in the North Caucasus region, namely Chechnya and Dagestan. The Bizon was also used in combat operations in the Second Chechen War and more recently during the 2008 war with Georgia over South Ossetia. The X factor behind the Bizon is the helical loading magazines. To get into the history of the PP-19 Bizon, we first have to talk about its predecessor. In the 70s, Yevgeny Dragunov created the PP-71. This model was successful in terms of functionality, but failed in terms of getting adopted into service, because at the time, ballistic experts still deemed 9mm Makarov as an inferior round. In the 1980s, an American company called American Calico Designs were prototyping a 100-round helical magazine, however, none of which were very successful. In the 1990s, Russia finally finalized it, and the PP Bizon was born. Russia also struggled to make this design work, judging from the many generations solidifying it. They had the Bizon 1, the Bizon 2, then instead of adding more numbers after it, they just kept modifying it, like adding AK-style irons, a receiver side rail for optics, QD flash hider to run a suppressor, etc. There were over 8 configurations offered for the Bizon 2. There was also the PP-91 Keter and PP-9 Klin models. While the weapon is still in service with Russian forces to this day, the Bizon is no longer being produced. Instead, the production line is focused on producing the Bizon's modernized derivative and successor product, the PP-1901 Vitiaz SN. What's interesting is how everyone knows legendary firearm engineers like Mikhail Kalashnikov and Yevgeny Dragunov, but you never hear about their sons despite the very obvious PR push to drive on their family's legacy. Yevgeny Dragunov created the semi-automatic SVD, or Dragunov sniper rifle, adopted by the Soviet military in the 60s. He made a compact assault rifle called the Dragunov MA, which failed because it got beat out by the AKS-74U for the military contract. But he also made the PP-71 SMG, which we talked about earlier, which was supposed to compete with the Czech VZ-61 Scorpion, the Polish PM-63 Rack, the MAC-10, and the MAC-11. At the time, they were all trying to create a select-fire, blowback, short-barreled, suppressor-ready platform. Then you have Mikhail Kalashnikov, who famously created the AK-47, which was supposed to compete with the STG-44, the M1 Garand, the M2 Carbine, the M14, M16, and more. He also made 2 lighter and more cost-effective versions of the AK-47. He made the AK-74, which was chambered in 545x39, but he also made the AKM, which is stamped and made mass production a breeze, versus the AK-47, which was milled. But their sons Aleki Dragunov and Viktor Kalashnikov never really created anything they can slap their name on, until the PP Bizon. But stealing an American magazine invention based on an Archimedean screw and slapping it on the bottom of a platform that your father created isn't exactly considered greatness in my book. And I think the gun world caught on to this and attributed its greatness to the Ease Mash factory instead of their sons' names. Viktor Kalashnikov was even quoted calling this the woman's gun due to it being so light and having no recoil. Now, onto the gun. It's just an AKV with a helical magazine. You can buy an AKV and convert it with the Stuff and Things kit, or you can buy it already converted from PSA. Overall, I prefer the AKV because magazines are just battle tested and better, but if you really need to scratch that helical magazine itch, I would go with the PSA STizon. If you really want a Bizon clone and the PSA is still sold out, you can always buy an AKV with the Stuff and Things conversion kit and convert it yourself. or bring it to your local gunsmith, which is recommended. I've read on a lot of forums that some Stuff and Things converted models don't cycle well, but the PSA STizon does. The Stuff and Things converted model also suffers from a wicked rattle, which PSA seemed to have fixed this with a set screw in the retaining plate. If you convert an AKV with the Stuff and Things kit, I've read that people are not only having that rattle, but they're also experiencing cycling issues. This could be because of poor home gunsmithing, the kit not setting people up for success via the instructions, inferior metal inside of the kit. I don't know. I've never handled the Stuff and Things kit, but anytime you're dealing with a stamped AK, the tolerances are not exactly precise. There is no one size fits all, and they all need different TLC, which is why you need the gunsmithing skills in order to convert anything. It's never as simple as just watching a YouTube video and converting it yourself. Something to keep in mind though is that I did a lot of research into the Stuff and Things company, mainly because I had never heard of them before, and they have no address, no phone number, and they only have an online support ticket function on their website, which users have reported is unmonitored. And don't get me wrong, Palmetto State Armory has horrendous customer service, but they do have a lifetime warranty on all firearms that they make. Take that for what you will. One thing to keep in mind is I do remember when sporterized eSmash Segas were everywhere after ITAR regulation and Obama's Russian embargo. People really hated conversion kits. Now, this kit I have a lot of experience with. The kit I always chose was from, I believe it was a website called Carolina Shooter Supply, and they made a conversion kit for the Sega, and people hated this kit. They absolutely despised it. But it wasn't the kit that was bad, which is what most people blamed. It was because the kit required a drilling jig to round out the front trunnion. And every conversion kit I used on a Sega required a little bit of a different approach, and it was always a different experience. Home gunsmiths normally just don't have the tools laying around, and they often make do with what they have, which is power drills and impact drivers and all types of craziness. Then when they break something, they blame the inanimate object instead of their lack of expertise. This could be why the Stuff and Things kit reportedly has cycling issues, or the kit could be trash, or people could be using the wrong magazines. That's another thing. But if I had to guess, I'd say it's the former, because Palmetto State Armory takes this same exact kit and installs it just fine. The only difference is a set screw. But let's get into the PSA STizon. The STizon is designed to function with the newer style STizon magazine. This magazine has a feed neck or feed lip, whatever you want to call it, that is specific to function in this firearm. This will not properly function if you use a magazine with a flat feed ramp. If you plan to shoot suppressed, you must use a jam nut to index because there's no shoulder on the barrel and you will have baffle strikes. It's rated for plus P plus 9mm, so you can safely shoot your pissin' hot loads. The barrel is a 10.5 incher. It's nitrided and it's made out of 4150 steel. It has a 1 in 10 twist. The threads are 1/2 by 28, which interfaces with most common 9mm devices. It has a STizon flash hider on the end, which doesn't hide your flash at all. It has an aluminum handguard. The receiver is stamped, but the bolt, the carrier, and the trunnion are all forged. It has a Picatinny top rail and fixed rear sight. The irons on this thing are stupid accurate. Putting a dot on this would be cheating. It would be even better. It fits a low mount dot, which can co-witness with the rear and front sights in case your glass dies or breaks. High mount stuff for my active and passive aim nighttime boys obviously will not co-witness. The safety feels great. It's crisp and it feels extended. It comes with a single stage GF3 trigger. There's also an option for an additional $100 to add an ALG trigger, like what's in their Gen 4 and Gen 5 AKs. But at the end of the day, it's an AK trigger. It feels fine. It has a normal pistol grip, which also feels fine. It's nothing overwhelming. It has a brace adapter, which looks to be an SB tactical triangle brace. Not sure. There's no markings on it whatsoever. When folded, it's around 19 inches in overall length. And when extended, it's around 27 inches in overall length. At first, I thought there was a magnet or something in the tail end of the brace, but upon closer inspection, it's the adapter. When you fold the brace, it snaps into position, which feels incredible. It folds on the left side to not interfere with cycling, but the mags are cylinders, so it's a pain in the butt to seat them without combating the hinge on the brace adapter. But this is interesting because PSA's AKV and M4 brace adapters don't do this. Maybe it's PSA's new gen adapter that I'm not familiar with, but it's definitely an upgrade. It also comes with a 55 to 58 round magazine, which is an entire segment in and of itself. They come in anodized aluminum or clear plastic, which I assume is some sort of reinforced polycarbonate. The end cap is a fiberglass-filled nylon. These mags go for a whopping $170 before tax and shipping, and that's if you can find them. Also keep in mind that they have to be the right mags. The older generation magazines are still sold online, and typically those are the only ones in stock these days. There were a few generations, so the neck needs to be the right form factor. The magazine holds 55 in the tube. The feed neck of the magazine holds an additional 3 rounds. The third round in the feed neck will make the round protrude. I only had one failure to feed, and it was 100% user error. I figured out that you can't have a round sticking out of the mag when inserting it. When a round is on top, you can't press it down because it's not under compression like a box mag. It's under torsion in an auger pattern. In order to do so, it requires you to rack the bolt while inserting the mag, and AKs don't have bolt catches. So you start doing this awkward juggle with the brace pressed against your stomach, your left hand seating the mag while the right hand is pulling the bolt back, and nothing is really securing the firearm in your possession. It's possible to get 58 rounds, I just don't recommend it. This also means that if you have any cycling issues whatsoever and you need to take the mag out to clear the gun, you will have to depress this lever again because the rounds are pressed upward. So not only do you need to remove the mag, you need to clear your jam, then you need to reset the magazine so it doesn't have that torsion pressure. Then you can reinsert it and finish shooting the mag. Gravity seems to be only a factor when loading these magazines. I found myself having to tilt them a little bit forward and shake them a bit. However, once the mag is seated, it has no problem feeding while shooting sideways or even upside down. There's a knob at the end of the magazine. You have to load 3 rounds, rotate it 3 times, then repeat until full. Then you can add 2 more into the neck for a total capacity of 57. It's also very, very easy to miss one of these slots while loading, so it takes time and patience. If you miss a slot, it doesn't hinder the performance at all or cause a malfunction. You're just reducing your capacity, which is the entire reason why you're playing with this helical mag in the first place. There was definitely a learning curve, and I missed a bunch of slots when I first started loading these, but it ran just fine. The mags are also really stiff when they're new, but they do loosen up after a few hundred rounds. There's also a little ratchet/lever on the side of the feed neck. This ratchet is what allows the torsion mechanism to halt so that you can load rounds into the next slot. It's also a lever because once you depress it, now the spring is activated and rounds will feed under pressure. You can do this manually so that you can understand how the magazine functions, but it will cause a round to protrude. If you hit the lever by mistake, you can always give the end cap another twist to disengage the lever and deactivate the torsion mechanism. So if you hit the lever, you're done loading rounds. When you insert this mag into the AK, this lever will get naturally depressed by the receiver. If this lever malfunctions, which I assume eventually will happen, it won't activate the torsion and the magazine won't feed. There are 2 screws on the end cap. If you take them out, you're in for a wild ride. These mags are not easy to put back together. It involves removing all 3 followers out of the feed neck, a retention pin that holds the spring in place, which falls out on its own, cranking the spring to the correct torsion again, then putting all 3 followers back in under the right amount of tension. It's a huge pain in the neck. So you see these 2 screws? Yeah, you don't do that. But let's move on to some cons. Number 1, if you take this mag apart, good luck. And this will be a problem for you eventually in the future when you have to replace mag springs, just like in every other magazine. Number 2, it's not an AKV mag catch. It's oversized so you can reach it, and sometimes it gets stuck, meaning the mag isn't seated properly. There's also a non-oversized mag catch that gets sold on the market, which you can't even reach around this fat magazine. So make sure that you're buying the right one when you're converting it yourself. The spring problem fixes itself after some wearing in, but you have to remember that if a spring is an issue in the beginning stages of its life, it will definitely be an issue in the end stages of its life also. It's not a huge issue to replace, it's just a spring, but my mentality is geared towards the reliability aspect. The flash hider doesn't hide your flash signature, not even with normal pressure ammo. Sure, it's a 10.5-inch barrel, but it's a PCC. Number 4, mags don't seat well when you're firing in foldy boy mode. And finally, my hot take, it's a range toy. I wouldn't use this if my life depended on it, or if SHTF box mags reign supreme, especially over some 1970s Russian technology that doubles as a sex toy. All in all, it's fun, it's cool, it's interesting, it's new, it's something that we couldn't get our hands on before this, so have fun with it. So if you want a neat gadget for the range, go ahead and buy it. But I would recommend buying the PSA STizon over an AKV and converting it with the Stuff and Things kit. That's all I have for you today. Please like and subscribe. Join the Discord if you'd like to talk to like-minded people. We have beginner to advanced sections. Every day I scour the internet to find the best deals on guns, ammo, bushcraft, medical prepping, etc. And I put all of that in the Discord. If you'd like to support me by helping me out with ammo to review more firearms, you can become a Patreon subscriber for as low as $4 per month. Until next time, take care.